Hi, I'm Yvonne Pran. This is a short Bible 805 video, and in it, I'm going to try to explain to you God's view of time. This is really essential for you to understand as you read your Bible. So let's jump right into it. Now, imagine a parade and compare the view from high in the announcer's booth and the view of a person on the ground. From high up, you can see the whole thing. On the ground, you only see what passes in front of you. Now, of course, God's view of time and our view is very, very different, but it's the same sort of idea. And I trust that this little chart illustrates it for you. You see, up at the top here we have God's view of time. And though it's hard for us to conceive, God simultaneously is aware of and knows all that is past, present, and future. That is what it means to be God. He exists in eternity. Now, down on the lower line here, we have our little human figure, and we only know a point in time. We can imagine a past and a future, but we live in a point in time. But what's important as we read our Bible is you see God can tell us, and was able to tell, of course, the Bible authors, all of what happened in the past and all of what's going to happen in the future. This view of time is really important for us to understand, first of all, how God is author of the entire Bible, though he used humans to write it down. You see, the Bible has a consistency and one major storyline throughout because God saw it all. God had it all planned out. He knew all of the events, what was going to cause what, before it even started. And this is really important for us to realize that the Bible has a consistency that it does because God is the author of the entire Bible. Next, this is important in understanding predictive prophecy. God can tell us through his word what will happen. He's completely trustworthy when he tells us something, because when he says this is going to happen, he sees the future before we're anywhere near close to experiencing it. And one of the things too that's important on this is we have example after example after example, and I'll go through it as I go through some of my teachings on the Bible, where God predicted something, it happened exactly as he said it would. We see records of this throughout the entire Bible, and so we can trust that now what he tells us during our life, what he tells those of us that are living now, that what he promises in the Bible will happen in the future, will happen. It's also important for predictive revelation and biblical typology. These are rather complex terms, but they're important for us to understand, where God introduces part of an important truth, for example, in the Old Testament, and later it finds its complete fulfillment in the New Testament. For example, in the Old Testament, God introduced the idea of the sacrifice of an innocent lamb as a payment for sin. In the New Testament, we see the final and perfect sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. Now, I have a number of other full-length lessons that really go into detail on how this works. I have the two-part series on the Bible, Human Story or Divine Revelation, where I talk in more detail about God's view of time, and then also about progressive revelation, why the Bible is more like a novel than a collection of short stories, and don't bail out, how to understand the Old Testament laws, where I go into much more detail on typology. Now, these are longer, half-hour to 45-minute lessons, but I wanted you to just, when you start, understand this chart, how God's view of time, where he knows all of what is past, present, and future. And remember, the God who knows all this is a God of love. He's a God who doesn't change. He's a God who has cared for you from before you were born, and who will care for and love you throughout all eternity. We only inhabit this little point in time, but we can trust our God who sees it all and is with and for us forever. Please go to Bible805.com, where you can download this chart and have free access to many, many other lessons, podcasts, videos, notes, all sorts of things that will enable you to learn to know, trust, and apply the Bible.